What is up everyone? As always, it's Lovenji here. Thanks once again for coming back, and today we're going to be looking at a mission that unfortunately insists on being done somewhat properly. As much as I enjoy clearing the missions as quickly as possible, we've got a few constraints, also known as water, that are going to restrict us from doing so. As the name of the mission implies, we'll be dealing with a new mechanic, unseen enemies. Without further ado, let's get this underway. So again, we're on the world map. We're actually on our second of the solar systems now, beginning mission 7. So right away, I'm actually going to go into a sped up segment here because we're on a clock. We're basically waiting for her to attack us, or at least I think we are at this point in the video. So I cancel the flyby and immediately we go into the conversion phase. If you remember in the previous mission, I described the conversion phase as a phase in which you just go around gathering wild men and building your tribe. And unfortunately, because of the water separating us and them, that's exactly what we're going to do. So I prioritize getting the training huts in this mission because the water is ended, or the water separation is ended when the enemy shaman decides to cast land bridge, and what she does is she casts a land bridge and starts attacking you with invisible people. She does about 3 waves of these before she gives up. I don't realise that you could attack her prior. That's actually a discovery I make in this video. So I'm training preachers to deal with the invisible enemies. The first wave of invisible enemies is always 5 preachers, and you can only stop preachers with other preachers or the shaman. And as I'm planning to get aggressive with the shaman, I needed the preachers. So we're just building up the tribe at this point. Nothing interesting whatsoever. Just trying to get as much mana regeneration as we possibly can. And I'm pleased to announce I figured out how to naturally stop a sped up segment. So as we come to the end of this rockin' song, we'll go back into normal speed, in which I continue to prepare my tribe for the oncoming attack that I actually end up beating. I don't mean beating as in beating the attack back, I mean I actually end up on her island first, which I wasn't expecting to do. So we're back at normal speed. As you can see, my huts have started to upgrade. And I had the silly screen view on the entire time. There's a good reason it was sped up, otherwise that would have annoyed me and I'd have had to have redone the video. I'm just looking for cheeky places to place down more huts. Again, huts are key to every level in this game because they are our source of mana. As I do the majority of the work with the shaman, mana is very important to me. If you were to play online, the focus is a lot more around individual, vast quantity of huts and having a single brave in each hut, as well as warrior backup. You'll find warriors are quite common in multiplayer because of their ability to murder shamans. But additionally, online you're careful about what you do because there's unique little tricks where whenever a shaman begins combat with a unit, the first thing they do is push her. Now, if you are casting a spell outside of the shaman's range, the shaman tries to move her. So what you can do, it's a really cool little trick for playing online if any of you fancy trying it, is you can, while in combat with one of the enemy followers, try to cast a spell out of your range and they will push you. And you're not limited on how many times you can do this, so the spell you saw me get insta-killed by in the previous mission, the lightning spell, is very easy to avoid because what will actually happen is the enemy follower will push you out of the way, saving your life and leaving only them to get struck by lightning. And that's a cool little trick. I often forget to do it in single player because I get lazy, but it's a trick I picked up when playing Populous Reincarnated, which is the multiplayer mod for this game. It's not really a mod, I suppose. It's more of a community ran server. Check it out though, it's very good. So it was at this point where I realised I had all my spells charged and I had a land bridge, so I could actually start the attack. I thought you had to wait for her because of the timing of it all. But I was either faster than I usually am, or she was slower than I remember her being. So I tried to make a trick shot there with the lightning, it didn't really work out. All I'm doing is slowly trying to push my way into her base, so I can start doing some damage. Now, I generally tend to prioritize taking the wood stage of the warrior training hut if I can. As I explained in the previous video, the AI, when there's a shaman in her base, is very basic. It sends one trained unit to come and deal with you. Because at this point they can only be warriors and not also fire warriors, just to keep the warrior number down or to whittle through the amount of warriors she can have readily available at any one time, I choose to take a stage off the warrior training hut so she can't be replacing the warriors that I kill after they charge me. But what proceeds is a very slow and methodical process. I'm checking the shaman's position. Basically, when she's ready to attack, she'll move from that spot. So I'm still watching out for the attack, because all the AI attacks in this game are scripted, and so they'll happen regardless of what you're doing. I decided to make use of my preachers as well. One of the reasons I avoid using preachers normally is because, as mentioned in the last video, when units are nearby, the enemy shaman tends to go into a sort of all hell breaks loose style of play. She unleashes everything she has. So I use the preachers to break this position. It's pretty straightforward. She's actually sending preachers off now, which is where I suspect the attack is coming. I let my shaman get dangerously close to death repeatedly, because I'm just terrible at managing her. That little notification that pops up just says, "Shaman, be warned, you are about to be attacked by invisible enemies." And yeah, she's moving over to cast the invisibility spell. The invisibility spell is an interesting one. I don't really fully understand how it works, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. If you're within range of a preacher and you're an invisible unit, you will still be preached to. There you go, that was the invisibility spell. She actually cast it on something completely unrelated to what she wanted to attack with. Again, the AI is not particularly intelligent. But yeah, if you're invisible and you're a unit that can be preached to, and you're near a preacher, you can still be preached to. So preachers are a good defense against invisibility, unless the preachers are invisible, which is what she's doing here. And then they will not become visible again until they start to preach to something. Normally units are invisible for a set amount of time, or until they attack something. At this point, because I'm launching a preacher attack, I'm trying to reduce the number of preachers she has on the field. And I get a really good shot into the water there. So the push mechanic was actually to threaten shamans near the water. So you may have noticed, and you certainly will notice in some of the footage I've prepared for later levels, pushing the shaman into water is a very common technique that the enemy will utilize, and it's absolutely infuriating. Nothing in this game can swim. That's why we have the boats, the nightmarish and impossible to control boats. And so when you're launching attacks with the shaman, the fact that the enemy can and will just push her into the water will be the bane of your existence if you ever do try this game, and it's something to bear in mind. I always say it's something to bear in mind, and then I never do. So probably 90% of my deaths throughout this whole playthrough will be me getting knocked into the water by my own spells, by the enemy's spells, by being pushed by a follower, by the erode spell not working as I want it to. Most of my deaths are water deaths. So I didn't realise the enemy shaman was in that tower at that point. She had no mana to cast anything. Either that or she didn't particularly care about her followers being converted. But this basic preacher push, as you can see, all I'm doing is backing up the preachers and keeping an eye out for enemy preachers. Fortunately, because I damaged the preacher hut with the lightning spell earlier, she hasn't been able to make more. But the only thing that can stop a preacher is another preacher or the shaman. And so it doesn't matter how many of these well-trained warriors she sends at us, she doesn't have the tools to just stop my preachers converting everything. And if it didn't take so much time, it's actually one of my favourite ways to win. I really like the idea of just turning someone's army against them. When I was a kid, I mentioned before I like to play with the cheats on. When I was a kid, I liked to do the first 2 missions, the ones without preachers, and cheats for all buildings. Because if you cheat for all buildings, you get the preacher training hut. And with the preacher training hut, I could then just have fun converting them. There weren't that many units to convert because they were the first 2 missions, but I really enjoyed doing that anyway. So at this point, we absolutely have this mission. There's not a way we can lose this. Our tribe is so much bigger than hers. Our preachers are just moving in further and further. I accidentally get a preacher killed there. Oh no, he's alright. I almost get a preacher killed there. When you cast spells near preachers, it interrupts what they're doing and gives the people being preached to a chance to react. So I'm trying to provide backup, and I fail for that poor preacher, who unfortunately I failed to save. I really like letting none of my units die when I attack. It's another reason why I don't attack with units very often. Because in a game that's so high-powered and so high, well, the death counts in these missions are so high for both sides. I really try to avoid using infantry because that just puts us in this position. So yeah, that brings an end to Mission 7. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now. So that was Mission 7, Unseen Enemy. And it wasn't particularly interesting to watch, I'm fully aware, but thanks for sticking with it. As always, leave comments below as to what you'd like to see different, or any games you'd like to see me go through. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.